Hello everyone, my name is James Rankin and I'm here today to tell you how to use FSLogix Profile Containers to send your Windows user profiles cloud native and how easy it is to set up. Now, I fully intended with my new YouTube video editing skills to give you a wonderful picture-in-picture view of myself commentating on this. Unfortunately, OBS, Open Broadcast Studio, seems entirely incapable of recording anything when virtual machines are booting up. So we're back to the old Snagit stuff. So you get to hear my wonderful Alan Partridge tones as Mr. Aaron Parker described me on Twitter. Thank you very much, Aaron, for that comparison. And you've just got me over here watching what I'm doing on my screen instead. So a bit disappointed there, really. So anyway, if you want it, we've moved all our apps to the cloud. Our data is going to the cloud. Can we move our profiles to the cloud as well? I don't say why not. And what I did was we used FSLogix Profile Containers to put our profiles into an Azure SMB file share. Now you probably think that sounds really complicated because you're thinking maybe you'd have to set up an Azure-based file server with a share and all that stuff that's needed to go with it, and a domain controller in Azure as well maybe, and some Azure AD and all that sort of stuff. But no, you do not need that at all. Basically, we can set up an SMB-based file share in Azure. All you need is some endpoint machines, in which this case we're using Windows 10 machines based on the 1703 Creators update, which doesn't seem to have that much creativity-based stuff in there, but I'm completely digressing. That's something for another video, hopefully coming very soon. You need an Active Directory, but on-premises will do. It does not have to be a cloud-based Active Directory. You obviously need FSLogix apps, a little bit of configuration on that side. You need an Azure account. And you need your firewalls to allow the traffic to that SMB-based share on the internet. Mainly port 445. TCP 445, I think, is the main one. But if you get all that stuff in place, this should be fairly easy to set up. So without further ado, let's crack on. Here are our two Windows 10 machines based on 1703. And sorry for not switching off my email alerts there. That's a schoolboy error. We shall log on to these machines as an administrator and install the FSLogix apps software. Now, of course, you could install the FSLogix apps software through SCCM or even a GPO or Landesk or anything. Many of the Landesk, they're not even called Landesk anymore, they're called Ivanti. You have to stop falling into that trap. Apologies to the XApp sense guys out there. But yeah, rather than deploying it onto these two machines automatically, I am just going to install it by hand the old school way, and we will show you what you need to set up. We're going to install the almost latest version of FSLogix. I believe 2.8 is now available, but 2.7 should do absolutely fine for purposes of this demonstration. So we shall go with 2.7. Let's just get this installed. Accept the licensing terms, click install, wait for a little UAC prompt to pop up, and obviously click yes to that. But it's just trying to give you an overview of how dead simple this is to set up. FSLogix, I really like FSLogix Profile Containers because it's all driven by GPO. You don't need any supporting infrastructure, databases, web services, any of that stuff. You just need a file share. And obviously in this case, we are going to be using an Azure file share. Right, that one's done already, so let's just restart the first machine. And the second one's done. So let's just restart the second machine. Right, so while those two are off configuring themselves, we shall now do the Azure setup. Obviously you need an Azure account. Hopefully this would work for AWS, all of the other big cloud providers as well as Azure. Let's hope I've got no embarrassing tabs left open from my previous browsing session, which has happened to me on more than one occasion. Let's just go to the Azure portal and see what we can see. Okay, hopefully it'll log me straight in. Okay, I'm on my Azure dashboard. Now, as I said, we don't need Azure-based file servers. We don't need anything funky like that. No authentication. We are going to do this by using what is known as an Azure storage account. As far as I can tell, Azure storage accounts are kind of supposed to be used with for kind of legacy applications that require SMB file shares, and I think they're kind of anticipating that you would already have kind of application-based systems in Azure doing this. But anyway, we're going to leverage this without any compute on there, which is why it seems to be quite cheap. In all my testing, I've only spent about £2.50 so far. But anyway, click on Create Storage Account. First of all, give this storage account a name. Let's call it Profile Store. Performance, you can have standard or premium. Premium runs on SSD, standard runs on spinning disk. I'm going to use standard. You might want to use premium depending on your performance requirements. Encryption, because we're dealing with user data here, probably a good idea to turn it on, but just for purposes of this demonstration, I shall leave it turned off. We'll create a new resource group called JR1, assuming I haven't already got one, which would be a good idea to check. I've already got two using that. Can I create it in that existing resource group there? Yes, I can. So deployment has started over here of our Azure storage account, which should be done quite quickly. Now, the reason we're using Profile Containers to do this, rather than another thing, is because it's nice and simple to set up. It's very similar under the hood to Microsoft User Profile Disks. Now, User Profile Disks, I did a video recently showing how you can use those on Windows 10, but User Profile Disks I find to be rather error-prone, whereas FSLogix is a lot more reliable profile container solution. FSLogix have tweaked the UPD sort of paradigm a bit, so you can use it on older operating systems, back down to Windows 7. They've put some management tweaks in there, and most importantly, they actually seem to give a shit about the software, which is not something that can really be said about Microsoft and User Profile Disks, unfortunately. So that is the rationale behind why we're using FSLogix Profile Containers to do this. We're looking for a quick, an easy, and an effective profile management solution we can put in the cloud. Okay, we've deployed our new storage account. So if I refresh this screen, we should say there's our storage account called Profile Store. Right, next thing we need to do in here is create a file share. So essentially what we've just created, Profile Store, is almost like the root of the UNC path you would expect in an SMB file share. So now we're going to click on this file share to create the actual name of our share itself. And rather originally we call that Profile Store as well. The quota you can put for it is anywhere up to 5.12 terabytes, depending on your storage and profile requirements. You can make that decision here. We're just going to bang it in as a quick 100 gig to be nice and round. So it now says successfully created file share Profile Store, which is fantastic because the previous recording it wouldn't create, and it gave me the wonderful error of error. Really great error trapping there, Microsoft. Your storage, your file share failed to create. The error was error. Yep, really helped narrow it down. But anyway, it hasn't happened this time, which is all good. So now, what we're going to do is two things here. First of all, inside our file share, we're just going to add a directory, and we're just going to call this Profiles, just so we can keep it all nice and neat and tidy. So we've created a directory in there now, as you can see. Now, this next bit is kind of one of the kickers. Click this connect button here. Because we're not standing any authentication up in the cloud or anything like that, what we're essentially going to do is we're going to use an access key to get access to it. Now when I click on connect here, it gives you a net use command, not even PowerShell, a net use command. How wonderfully old school is that? So this is what you, whoop, if I can get it copied. Oh, I've copied the whole screen instead. Take a copy of this. This is what you're going to use for access to that file share. Drop it in a notepad window or something like that. So we want to change it around a bit, because replace that bit obviously with a drive letter. We'll call it X. Now you can see that the path there is profilestore.file.core.windows.net/profilestore. Then it gives you a username, which is there if you remember your net use command, if you're an old dinosaur like me, and then a password, an access key afterwards. Right, copy that. Now this is the kicker. That is like a one-time access key for access to this file share. So you're going to have to be very careful about who's got access to that password, because otherwise they can jump in your file share and not just use it, they could delete all of your profiles out there, which you obviously wouldn't want. Whatever file system runs under here, it's not NTFS. So we're going to have to be very careful with that password. But anyway, that is everything. You can change that if you need to, so it's not that much. So that's all you need to do on the Azure end. We now have this profiles directory that is all ready for us to dump our profiles into. Now, What an odd, horrible background that we've changed to there. Let's get that changed around because I hate crap backgrounds on my on my videos. Right. Next, let's just hide all of that. We need to configure a group policy object that does all of the stuff on the endpoint for us. Now, we've got one here called Profile Containers Settings, which is already assigned to the OU that our workstation is setting. But I'll show you various bits of this. Let's just hide all of that extraneous stuff for the minute. The most important part is first to allow the machine to be able to write to that file share and the user to be able to write their profile to that file share. When the machine starts up, we need to run a group policy startup script that basically runs that netuse command to allow it access. So it's pointing to this path here. So if we just go in and edit this batch file, it is a batch file, and it's 2017, and we're talking about netuse commands and batch files, rather fantastic. So if we just copy all of that stuff and paste in what we had before, and then we shall save that. So now, when the machine boots up, it will run that script in the context of the system user, which will then allow the system user access to that file share. Now, obviously, because we've just updated a group policy object, we are going to have to not just restart these machines, but also give them a quick GP update as well to make sure they've picked up that particular change. Actually, I probably sound a bit stupid now because we haven't changed the GPO. We've just updated the actual command that it runs. So I can just restart them and it should rerun that command. So apologies for looking a little bit thick there by assuming I would have to run a GP update when I haven't actually changed anything. This machine appears to have gone a bit dead. No, it hasn't. It's woke up now. So let's just restart that one. Okay, while they're restarting in the background, I didn't mean to close that one down. Let's quickly connect back to it. Right, let's just minimize those little fellas there, and let's go back to have a look at the rest of our group policy object. Now, another of the things that I love about FSLogix Profile Containers is the fact that I can just configure some... Oh god, I'm looking in the wrong bit again. Where is it? It's under their preferences. It's under their preferences. Okay, something appears to have disappeared. There, why didn't that show under there? God only... Oh, for God's sake. I'm having a right great day today, aren't I? Let's just click show all. There you go. Right. Of course, because they're computer level settings. That's why. That's what I meant to do. I knew I'd get there in the end. Okay, just ignore all that stuff. Pretend that I really do know what I'm talking about. Right, so... These registry keys here in HK local machine, software FSLogix profiles, simply a bunch of registry keys you can put down there using ADMX and ADML files, or just group policy preferences. Now the first one, VHD locations, is a multiple string, very important. We will change this to the value of this. So we've got our profile store.file.core.windows.net, profile store/profiles. That's the route that all of the user profiles are going to be put into. So that tells it where to try and access to do it. Next one, and the same place, dword value called size in MBs. Set that to however big you want them to grow. We've set it up to 1 gig at the minute. Set that bigger or smaller, depending on the size of user profiles. This is very important, the one that says enabled. It's by default a dword of 0. Change it to a dword of 1 to turn on the profile containers settings. But this one is the real kicker, and this is why FSLogix Profile Containers works and Microsoft User Profile Disks won't in this configuration. Access network as computer object. We've configured the access to that as a startup script, so it runs under the context of the system account. Set this to a dword of 1, and then the FSLogix Profile Container service, when the user logs on, will try and access that share as the computer object instead, which kind of translates into the system account for all intents and purposes, and allows the user to write to that file share essentially without even having authenticated to it. So that, very important. The next bit, another thing that I love about FSLogix Profile Containers, because it's dead easy to maintain, there is a local group created called FSLogix Profile Include List, and whichever groups or user accounts that you place inside of here will be managed on a profile containers level. If you're not in there, it's not managed and you just get a local profile as normal. We've bunged in 3 users, JRank and JRank and 2 and JRank and 3. We'll probably use JRank as the one to do all the testing on here. And finally, we've configured, because we mapped that as an X drive, and I don't really think you have to map it as a specific drive letter. You could just map to the share using the netuse command. But anyway, I used an X drive, and the problem is this X drive then appears as a disconnected drive in the user sessions. They can't access it, they get prompted for a password, so it's not a security risk, it just kind of appears there. So if you've done it this way with a dedicated drive letter, I've set up a group policy preference to basically hide the drive when it's hide the X drive. So configure that one. So anyway, this entire group policy object is linked to our OU. So those machines should have picked all of that up. So that should be really everything you need to do to get this set up, he says. So it's the moment of truth. So first of all, let me grab you an online stopwatch of some sort. We will time the first log on. Yeah. Now, if any of you followed any of my... Where's he gone, that online stopwatch? I've lost him. He's there. Right, let's just get this down to a reasonable size so we can see what's going on. Mr. Online Stopwatch. That should about do it. Yeah, we'll just push this over here, minimize that. Right, so we'll log on here and we'll time the first log on. I need to switch that to a basic session before I embarrass myself by not being able to log on. So I'm learning. Right, so first log on Windows 10 does take a long time. So it's basically got to create a new profile with all the universal Windows platform apps and things like that. So I'm kind of anticipating this will take over a minute. But the real KPI we're going to look at is the secondary log on after that. So don't take this one. When a user logs on for the first time, yep, it will take this amount of time. But it's not a limitation of the FSLogix Profile Containers mapping to Azure. It's basically because Windows 10 sucks. And I haven't done any of the optimizations that I'm always recommending. So let's just log that one on and start the timer there. For the first part of this, as I said, I'm expecting about a minute. But what it should be doing at this point, is mapping up to that Azure SMB file share and basically creating a directory to hold the VHD file, which holds all of our user profiles. So there she blows. We have successfully mapped there. FSLogix, unlike user profile disks, appends the username after the SID as well, so you can easily see which user's profile is which's. So we know that's working, it's creating that, but as I said, it is not the fault of the FSLogix Profile Containers software or even the Azure storage account that this first logon takes so long. That is purely on Windows 10 itself as it spews out all the universal apps. I could have removed a lot of those universal apps in readiness for this to make it look slicker, but I thought I would operate with a vanilla version of Windows 10 1703 just so people, you know, got a sort of genuine feel for what it works like in its out-of-the-box configuration. Probably move that along a bit to actually allow you to see that rather than it looking like it was ticking backwards in time. So yeah, first logon, but this will only be ever the first logon. After that, the user does have a profile, and as I will show you, subsequent logons onto other machines will be vastly faster, he says. In great hope they would provide. Right, this is the first logon I've actually timed on the 1703 creators update, and I'm quite annoyed that it's now pushing 2 minutes for a first log on. I didn't expect it to be that. I expected about 1 minute 20 or so, if I was blatantly honest. But this also just goes to show you that how wonderful one said. There you go. Wow, 2 minutes, probably about 1 second for that first log on. So that shit, if you really want my personal you know, completely unbiased opinion on that, utter shit. And I really should turn my email off. Anyway, so there you go, 2 minute logon. Right, what we're going to do now is we're going to do a bit of customization. Oh, of the user. Unfortunately, my default thing still says. So let's put something up here like Windows 10 is really annoying, just to show some customization. Let's, whoops, what have I just done there? I've actually activated Cortana. Let's unpin some stuff from the start. What the hell was that? P Windows. I am actually using an old start layout here, which wasn't designed for the 1703 update, so there may be some oddness on there. Anyway, let's just pin a few bits on. What can we pin where? Anyway, let's pin something to the taskbar. Let's, in my file share, I do have a couple of bits of stuff we could maybe pin to the start menu, like RDP connections and stuff like that. Let's have a look for you. I always get a bit of lag when I connect it to my file share on my DC these days. I'd love to know why it is, but I don't have time to work it out. Come on, come on. They'll be closed, as they say. Right, where is it? Let's pin this shortcut to Google to the start menu. I've got a remote desktop connection somewhere and pin to the start menu. What else have we got? Oh, there's remote desktop connect. Oh, yeah, they are working. Very odd. Yes, get to see the guts of Windows 10 exposed there. What else can we pin to it? Let's have the Solitaire collection, whatever that's all about. Smart pin to taskbar. Okay, so we got a bunch of stuff there. I don't think we can change the background because I haven't activated these evaluation editions yet. I can't change the background, can I? Can I? Please let me change the background. No, piss off, Windows. Ah, dear. Glory. Right, we'll just create a new shortcut to something like, I don't know what, Internet Explorer or some such. I'm sure I saw that. Yeah, let's just create that. Put that in there. Let's just jiggle them around a bit so we know when we log on to the other machine pretty much straight away if, you know, if we've roamed our settings. So let's just sign out of this machine. Now, Profile Containers. What Profile Containers does is, if a user is managed by Profile Containers, their profile will not be kept on the machine. However, as some of you clever of you out there may be thinking, so if I've got a laptop and I'm not on the network and it needs to access an Azure file share to get my profile, how would it get it if I was in a hotel and I hadn't connected to the Wi-Fi yet, which I can only do obviously when I log on. There is an option then to actually turn on a kind of a caching on the machine so that the profile wouldn't be deleted as it has been in this case, but I'll just show you that it has been deleted. But for laptop users or mobile users or whatever, the option does exist to keep a cached copy of the profile on that machine, which is then synced when it gets the network connectivity back. On a similar note, there is also an option to use a differencing disk. Simply, all of these things are controlled by registry keys, as is everything in FSLogix Profile Containers, and you can then have multiple sessions on, for instance, terminal servers or VDI machines, and they'll all synchronize themselves and merge themselves together when the user logs off, avoiding all that last right away stuff. But you can say that user, J Rankin, no longer has a profile on this machine. So, if we, what have I just done there? Sign out from here. Right, just a quick another Butch is back in our file share. Let's just do a refresh on that. And we should say, we'll have a look at the profile. Profile should be about 100 meg, maybe a little bit more. Where's my storage account? Let's have a look in it. As I said, it is just a VHD file, a mounted VHD file. Excuse me, that we have in there. Let's click on that to access it. It is a bit convoluted, the Azure console. So if we look in this directory, we should just say VHD 86 meg. That's all it is. There are options also in Profile Containers to redirect things back locally that you don't want to grab into the VHD file, like temporary internet files and things like that. So you can kind of unredirect stuff. So it's pretty cool. I like it a lot. Anyway, this is the other machine. This is 209, not 210. So we will log on to this machine as that user, and hopefully it should log on a lot quicker. But also, we should say all those changes to our profile downloaded from Azure and bunged onto our machine. So let's start the log on now. And I've left myself no chance for any smoke and mirrors or video editing or anything like that because I've started the timer. So if it takes 2 minutes to log on again, I'm going to look like a right idiot, for want of a nice phrase for a change coming from my mouth. So let's see how long it takes to do it. I have the utmost confidence that it will log on in about 40 seconds tops. I hate computers. I hate them. It just did that. It's worked beautifully. It's logged on a lot faster, but you hear me say 40 seconds and make sure it was just over. Goddamn technology. Anyway, you can see straight away from that, obviously a lot faster to log on, quite a reasonable log on considering we are running from an Azure file share, pulling that profile down, and it's on the slow storage anyway. But you can see straight away we've got our stuff that we customized over here, we've got our stuff on the taskbar that we customized, and we should have all that stuff in there. So there you go. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. It works, and it works well, and it works out of the box. Not a lot of setup required, easy to maintain. Now, this is just a sort of light profile management solution. You know, you can mount the VHDs if you wanted to edit when users are logged out, if you wanted to edit stuff in there. But it's not like the sort of Ivantis. I got the name right there. The Ivantis or the Reses of this world where you can do all sorts of wonderful things. It is just you know, a light, a cheerful, and easily to manage profile management solution. So when Windows chooses to update a profile version to version 7, as they might do, you'll have to sort of manually migrate your profiles up. But for the same operating system version or the same profile version, works absolutely great, and I think it's fantastic that we can now put these into Azure. However, the one big, huge problem about this is we've got to map that drive at startup, and basically the everyone group has to at least have execute access to that file, which kind of means they can read it as well. So that password, which is like the key to the whole file share, is in an accessible sort of place. However, I think you could possibly get around this in a number of ways. I was talking to Jim Moyle at Citrix User Group about various sort of certificate-based methods around this. So we are going to be looking at this sort of quite deeply. From the user perspective themselves, they can't browse the file share because the access to it is done under the system account. So from a security perspective, that's fair enough. It's just if you had an enterprising user who decided to go browsing through the file share where that startup script is stored, they may find they could read the password for that. But we're going to come back to that in future because that's just, it's not a huge deal. Users can't access this through an Explorer window or anything like that. However, you know, it is something that needs closing off perhaps just a little bit. So we shall be posting an update to this hopefully sometime in the very near future. But there you go. You want cloud native profiles, you want to put your profiles in the cloud along with, you know, your applications and your data, which we can do to varying degrees these days, then there is a dead sort of straightforward, easy, low maintenance, low overhead way of doing it using FSLogix Profile Containers. Someone has just flown a drone past my window rather bizarrely, which is quite amusing because I got a drone from FSLogix for doing a presentation for them once, and its maiden flight was not very long at all, so I'm surprised anybody's managed to keep it drawn up for this long. I am completely digressing. Thank you very much for listening. I'm sorry I couldn't show you my face and all the stupid faces I pull while I'm recording these sorts of videos due to the limitations of my Open Broadcast Studio software, but I hope this has been useful for you. Thank you very much.